in a forum like this, and we not only network, but also more importantly, we share knowledge, we share, we encourage one another, and then we inspire one another. And it's an organization that was founded by Kauffman Foundation. It's a national organization, very close to about 200 chapters all across the country. And we meet and we sort of encourage other entrepreneurs. Each week we have a business owner. They're gonna come up and present their business, and along with that business, their business challenge. And as a group, as a community, we're trying to help solve that business challenge. But before we get started, I'd like to recognize our coffee sponsor for the month of February. So if I can have Darren come up from Freedom Bank and tell us about Freedom Bank.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning. Yeah, you want me to be center, right? Am I good here? I didn't know that I was going to be Facebook Live today, so we'll see how well I do on camera. But I'm Darren Tully. I'm a business banker with Freedom Bank. We're a locally owned and operated community bank based right here in Northern Virginia. We have 4 branches in the area. We have Fairfax, Reston, Chantilly, and Vienna. So we're a pretty small bank, but we pack a lot of punch because we focus exclusively on the small business needs of businesses right here in Northern Virginia. So anywhere that the metro touches, that's where we want to be. We've been around since 2001, so we're not a flash in the pan. We're a pretty seasoned group of individuals, but we're looking to grow and invest in the small businesses right here. And I keep saying the word small businesses, not just because of the event that we're at today, but because we really mean it. In my experience, I've been in banking for about 8 years now, and a lot of the clients that I work with are small businesses, and we're talking less than $1 million, less than $500,000 in annual revenue. And a lot of times they say to me, Liz, look, I'm growing, but I don't have the sponsorship that I need, or I can't qualify for the things that I want to do with my bank. And that's really where we kind of step in and help out, because we're going to meet with you personally. I'm born and raised from this area. I know this area really well. And so I want to help the businesses that are right here by meeting with them and understanding their story. So that's a little bit about Freedom Bank and why we're sponsoring an event for entrepreneurs, because those are the types of clients that we want to help out. So if you know anybody like that, or if there's anything that we can do to help, please let us know.
All right, thanks, Darren. So if anybody or any company wants to sponsor a coffee for a month, just let us or any of the organizers know, and we can do that. So when we have these type of meetings on a weekly basis, it takes a lot of work behind the scenes. So I want to recognize the organizers. So if I can ask the organizers of our chapter to come up and introduce themselves. Start from there.
Okay. Tony Barnett with AOC Key Solutions.
Jen Dalton, Brand Mirror.
John Yu from Office Evolution.
Dave Morrell, 4 Steps Ahead.
Laura Durin, Random Words Marketing.
Great. Thank you. So, if you haven't checked in, we have a 1 Million Cups app. So if you can log on, check in, so we can recognize that you're here today. So a few more sort of logistics or housekeeping items before we get started. Parking, if you park in the front, it's 1 hour visitor parking. I think you're good for next 1 hour. But starting next week, if you like to park in the back of the building, we will hand out a parking card, so you can take that with you, and then you can use it for the whole month of February. Let's see. Oh, so last week we were canceled because of the snow. So just to kind of give you like how we do that is that if we follow the Fairfax County school policy, so if the Fairfax County school is either canceled or delayed, please note that we will be canceled for that meeting. So do that. And so we have a lot of new faces. So why don't we go around and introduce yourselves, your name and the company that you work with. So why don't we do that starting from here.
Darren Tully, Freedom Bank. Russ McIntosh, Vision Idea Design.
I'm Tom Shack, along with Foster Realtor.
Okay, fine.
Bill Sorensen, Consulting.
Deb Cohen Consulting.
All right. In the back there.
Laura from Random Words Marketing.
Okay, and then here.
Amy.
Amy.
you is IT technology.
Angel Balbuena, Wells Fargo.
Jesse Ramirez, Wells Fargo.
Dan Leonard Golden, Rural Home Watch Concierge.
Maya Shemendis, the Transformation Education Adventure Center.
Dave Morrell, 4 Steps Ahead.
Jen Dalton, Brand Mirror.
Ken Portnoy, Tyson's Toastmasters.
Kevin Kelly, the Canal Group.
Tony Barnett, AOC Key Solutions.
Adam Collins, the Canal Group Realty.
Catherine Nickel, Net Marketing Business Development Services.
I've done this stuff.
Barry Fake, Executive Advisors.
Jose Villarino with Foresight CFO.
John Foster with Green for Organic Cafe.
All right, great. A lot of new faces. Thanks again for joining us this morning. And so now it's the time we've all been waiting for. Let me introduce you to Carla Fleming at Pivoting Strategies.
Yes.
So Carla, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your company and then the problem or the problem that you would like us to answer. So.
Well, thank you very much, John, for having me here, and I am excited to present. I will walk through what Pivoting Strategies is, our challenge, and then email your feedback. So how does that sound? Let's get started. Okay, so Pivoting Strategies. We're a branding firm with a focus on leveraging branding to impact your marketing strategy. So what that means is we uncover what the customer wants, their expectations, and then we help you build a marketing strategy, and then we make sure that the marketing strategy is aligned from a branding perspective to make sure that however you show up, whatever your brand is and how you show up consistently across the board in every touch point of your business and engagement with your customer. Okay? So, what do we do in terms of the problems or the challenges customers come to us with? Well, it's really about 4 challenges from a brand strategy perspective. We're about working with them to attract customers, retain customers, helping them enter a market effectively, and then making sure that once we build that brand, that marketing strategy, that you're a better storyteller about what your why is and why you're in the market that you're in today. Because in this environment, we've got a new generation of consumers, and they are different from previous generations, and we need to be able to tell our stories effectively. So, why did I start my own company? I started it in 2015. I had spent 12 years, well not 12, but 20 years at IBM doing marketing and branding both nationally and globally. And so when I looked at it at the marketplace, I realized that the needs here in this market and with customers similar, but it's a challenge of how do you help a customer move in that direction, especially when there's a need that they don't really know that they have. So we're certified in product marketing, design thinking, UX experience, and in digital marketing. And what that allows us to do is really look at the problem from a multiple set of ways, and the types of customers we work with are the following. I'll get to that in a minute, but the point here is that the needs that they have cross a bunch of different areas. So when they come in and say, I have a challenge with attracting clients or attracting prospects, that project may roll out into, we need to look at your branding because of what we're seeing. You may have to do some competitive analysis because you may be entering a new market and you're not really clear about how to go in. In other cases, if you're trying to retain customers, you may go back in and interview your customers to see what's shifted. How is their decision making different? So that we can help you be clear about your why and tell a better story, but really retain them based on what they say their new needs are. Okay? So the type of customers we have are solopreneurs today in the media space, professional services, as well as nonprofit. We primarily focus on B2B. Okay? So what's it like when they work with us? We really listen deeply to understand your business so that when we come in with recommendations, it's not a knee-jerk. So we're not going to sit there and say one size fits all. Your business is unique, so we make sure that the strategy and the branding network we do is unique to you. That's how you're going to stand out. You have your own thing that makes you exceptional, and we want to make sure that everybody else understands it. We also leverage data and insights about how the customer makes a decision. Those are things that sometimes you just can't get the normal way. And sometimes we've got to find other ways to get at that information and provide that set of insights so that we can help build a strategy that'll allow you to grow, but at the same time, we keep an eye on the budget. Certain things that you may want to do, you may say, well, why don't we do advertising? The reality is that may not be the way your customer responds to it. That they may not be interested in advertising. There may be a better way to reach them. So, what's my challenge? Challenge is I want to move and diversify my client base, and I want to go after medium-sized businesses. So I am looking for ways to build know, like, and trust with C-suite executives, because the type of work that I do at Pivoting Strategies is going to impact the business as a whole. Meaning thinking about your brand, how do you go out and talk to your customer? Do you need a new market? Do you need to shift the market? Do you need to exit an industry because it's no longer the right fit for you? Those are the types of things that we do. So the C-suite is where I'm looking to work, who I'm looking to work with. And I'd love your feedback, advice, suggestions. So thank you.
You say medium business, do you have a subset of?
Well,
because that's a really big area.
That's a really good question. The preliminary work I've done indicates to me that anything under 20 million is probably going to be a challenge, because a lot of them, you would think at a $20 million firm, they would have marketing. It's very limited. They're still kind of, what's interesting about medium is they have a little bit of the mom and pop, but yet they have a large enterprise problems because they've got to adhere to all the government rules and regs about how you run the business. So I'm saying about 20 million and up. Yeah.
So who are your current, Devco and Devco and LLC, who are your current customers? What size businesses are you working with right now?
Solopreneurs. So it is usually right now, people, solopreneurs, they have typically been in large enterprise companies before they stepped out to start their own companies. So there's a simpatico there in terms of that. They're usually, this is not their first rodeo. Some of my clients are serial entrepreneurs. Or change up your business model, you start from ground zero again. And so it's kind of, how do you put the new hat on to adjust your perspective? And so what I come in and do is help them do that. But they are solopreneurs. One's a nonprofit. One just exited his recruiting business last year and now has moved into podcasting, which is media. So we're working with a lot of folks that are used to being solopreneurs. And I think that, is an attraction that they have to me and I have to them. But they're always, what I find with them is they're always thinking about the future. They're looking at trends in their industry and saying, wait, I see a gap. How can I go fill it? Does that help?
So can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
So that's great, and this is a good goal. How are you going to get from what you're doing now to this market that you desire to be in? So how do you make that transition? What are your plans to do that?
That's the challenge I've got. That's literally what I'm asking, because I find this audience is hard to reach. They're busy. Okay, I've tried cold calling. I've tried events, and I suspect that has to change a little bit. I've even interviewed influencers who surround those folks to kind of get a sense of what's going on in their heads. But right now, I've not been able to figure out how to crack that space yet. And that's what I'm trying to figure out.
So one question I had, Jen Dalton with Brand Mirror. Totally agree, they're very hard to find and spot because they're busy working. So they're either, for example, members of Vistage or members of Renaissance Executive Forum. So that sounds like the level of client you're looking for. One thought would be to do a research outreach, right? And reach out and interview, pick maybe one industry and reach out and interview 30 to 50 either CEOs or people in their executive team and provide that assessment of the market and of the branding. Because you have a pivot assessment. I saw you have that tool on your website. I don't know if that is easily expandable, but doing some type of assessment on the small to medium sized business that helps them understand where those brand gaps are. When I look at brand companies like Weber Shandwick, they do a lot of CEO interviews, but they're always with huge companies. And so there's an opportunity, I think, to develop some research, even if it's 5 questions and they answer it, or 10 questions, keep it simple. But if you let them know that once they complete it, you'll send it back out anonymized so they can get a sense of that for their industry. How are they standing out? What's the brand gap? But that might be one way. It obviously takes some legwork, but then you'd also have content that you could share as well.
Exactly.
So just a thought.
So definitely that one, that idea down.
Thank you. Dan Leonard, Golden Rule Home Watch. Jen touched on it. You talked about the size being over 20 million that you want to get to, but any particular focus? I mean, one business vertical within that, because again,
I know.
business over 20 million, there's still a lot of those, right? So
exactly.
I'm thinking to focus on a vertical and go from there, and everything from the networking efforts to your marketing efforts, and focus on that industry.
Okay. So in terms of vertical, today it's media professional services. So I'm also looking at M&A, but really got to get clear within M&A where to focus. So I'm having coffees with the folks there to get down that path.
Touching upon Jen's, which I thought is brilliant, have you thought about creating like a newsletter or something for Facebook where you kind of help them get their business out to the community by interviewing with them and say, hey, I want to interview you and get your information out to the community for a newsletter, or partner with a couple of, patch or something and write for them. This way, you they see some value in you, and instead of you trying to sell something to them.
I don't go in
right
selling. This is
I'm
not
just
the,
saying that because they are really busy, because they don't want to. Yeah.
Right.
They want to see. Oh, you're helping me.
The way I'm got a project that I'm working on right now, which is to go in from a book idea and position them as mentors to people coming through what they've been through. So that's a good take on. That's another good idea in terms of how to go after this. Other ideas.
How are you leveraging your branding to impact your marketing strategy at every touch point?
Okay, good question. What I'm doing right now is more or less a newsletter called The Pivot. So you want to get it on the website. And what I'm doing is kind of summarizing what I'm seeing in the market in terms of trends and changes that are going on. I also post on LinkedIn about 3 or 4 times a week where I'm spotting things that I think are interesting issues. And I'm getting a lot of readership. When I go out and network, people are saying to me, I saw that, that was a good point. So that, I started that the end of 2017. I've been doing it for a year. I'm continuing to do it to give people a sense of how that feels. When I sit down with my clients, I'm constant about even the appearance, how you come across to them, how I email. I just put together a brochure to really kind of explain that and kind of give them that feel. And all of those things are, creating interest, but I need to move past interest to, creating opportunities. So I'm a work in progress, just like my clients.
Quick question. Well, not more of a question, more of asking what your current networking strategy is. And I ask that because of the fact that your target is a target everyone really, really wants to get. And they are all very well protected with different layers of, firewalls and everything else. And sometimes, what you've mentioned and discussed already is sometimes just background noise because everybody is doing the same thing.
Right.
So what are you, because I found that to get those middle business size leaders and leadership is to go and get to know them in the places they go. Charity events, sporting events. It sounds silly, but my wife used to sit there and look at me like, yeah, why are you going to all these things? It's because that's where they are,
right,
in an environment where they're open to starting a discussion with you.
And so I'll tell you what it is today, and this is one of the areas that has really been a big challenge for me. So that's why I'm here. I need new ideas because I'm feeling a little bit like out of it in terms of what else could I try. Because I feel like I'm a little too scatterbrained in terms of trying to hit everywhere. And so what I'm doing right now for this year, I set a goal of talking to 40 people a month. And started last month, so I hit my number. But it's really talking to people I meet and saying, here's what I do, what do you do, how can I help you? And then saying, if you know of people that could use my services, who would you recommend? I still think I'm too early in the process to say that that has been effective. I will say people are turning me on to other people, so it's a process that I still have to work. In terms of networking in the mergers and acquisition space, this is where I definitely show up at the events. Got calls on the books for next week for people that I'm talking to, so I am doing coffees to get down that path. I'm mindful of my budget. I can't afford to go to every event.
Well,
so I'm mindful.
Let me just follow up real quick.
Okay.
You don't need to go to the events. It's a matter of time budgeting, and since you're right now early in the process, one of the things that I did, there was a particular person, I'm not going to say who, but I looked up on their LinkedIn profile and looked in the business and found out that they were heavily involved with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. All right, heavily so.
Okay.
So what did I do? I volunteered for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I still am an active part of it. But what was interesting was the fact that within a few weeks of me doing that and starting to get involved, the person who I was trying to reach was right in front of me at a meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And then I started opening a dialogue with them. I got their contact information, and since then he and I have been on a very friendly basis. It's things like that where it doesn't cost you anything except time.
Okay. And like you said, we have time.
Yes.
Jen and then you and then
Just a few thoughts. As far as networking, if you're not a member of the Tower Club, I think that's a good organization to be a member of. If you're doing specific events, and I would recommend doing panels. So I would find people who already have them as clients and do joint panels talking about, company trends or whatever that looks like.
Okay.
But panels can be really effective, and that way you're not doing it by yourself as a speaker, which takes a lot of effort to get butts in seats. I would find a partner organization, whether it's a bank or a law firm, that maybe you can give them advice on what their clients might be missing, or even do lunch and learns for them where they can bring in clients. Those are probably the last one. I think for your messaging, really figuring out what are the conversations you think CEOs should be having that you want to have with them, and what's the thought leadership content you specifically want to create. Because updating your website with the messages for the CEO of a $20 million company, I think will look different than what you have right now because the message is too broad.
Okay.
And so targeting your message more with a very specific pain point, I think would help a lot.
Awesome.
And it's hard to do it for yourself, right? It's easier to brand other people and tell them what's wrong. It's sometimes hard to do it for your own business.
Exactly.
So I totally get it.
yes.
Yeah. Bill Sampson, Sampson Consulting. A couple of things. Getting crisper on your offering, because as you go up to bigger companies, they're more specialized in their need.
Okay.
And on the side of that, do you partner with someone else in a joint proposal? So you're deeply specialist in your space,
Yeah.
they are too, and together you make something compelling.
I'm starting to do that. This year I actually had a proposal on the table actually 2 weeks ago, and we're waiting to hear back today, for a joint venture that is cybersecurity, and they are looking for marketing support. Their investment just off the bat would be about 13 to 15 million. So we put in a proposal. They thought that, what we offered was right on point. we're waiting to hear back. So yeah, I pulled a team together, and I had meetings last week with another group, to do something jointly. So yeah, I love your feedback. That's kind of one of the areas we're starting to explore.
Russ McIntosh, Vision ID Design. Jen hit on a good spot of going to the Tower Club and so forth. I know in Fairfax City there's a Mason Enterprise Center that do the lunch and learns. Maybe get involved in more of those. I wrote Giselle's contact information
Cool.
for you.
Thank you.
And just reach out to more places to do these teaching events, lunch and learns, and get more representation that way.
Awesome.
I'm going to interject. So when you stop to think about the situation that you're in, you're essentially, it's kind of a physician heal thyself situation. How have you approached that, and what are the things that you've done to try to help remove yourself from the situation and put your marketing hat on and say, how do I go about this?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Last year, this has been a challenge for over a year. And so what I did was, I started talking to influencers that work with CEOs. So your finance, your HR, those kind of folks that already have their businesses. And what I did was I interviewed them. So I applied to design thinking and interviewed them. And what I was trying to understand, because I realized I really enjoy working with folks that are thinking about the future or trying to figure out how to get there. And the research study was, what's the difference between a futuristic kind of company and a company that's thinking day to day. And the mindsets are different, which gets at kind of what you were getting at, is that the questions they're asking are different, so how do I think about those? And even talk to bankers and got a perspective. What I'm challenged with now is, okay, I get what I need to start looking for. I'm more likely to work with someone that is futuristic or has a balanced approach about the business. Maybe they understand the day-to-day of their business, but they also are looking at the future of their business. So they are kind of a balanced approach. Those are the types of companies I work better with. So that's what I walked away with. And so the messaging has reflected that. If it's day-to-day, you're probably not going to see the value that I bring unless you're in severe pain and willing to change. So that was kind of one of the things I had to kind of. Well, that was a lot. That was huge because I was spending more time on the day-to-day and not understanding why the relationship wasn't developing.
I think and you threw up the course of all the questions and your responses. Getting to why. Why would they make a change? Why would they engage with me? Why aren't they engaging? Because I've had the Groundhog Day experience of going through and having interviews and meetings with people and realizing it's like, okay, it didn't get me where I wanted to go as an entrepreneur. I need to start thinking about, okay, well, what are the conversations that are going to progress me up the hill as opposed to along a continuum where it's just like the same thing over and over again. And figuring out what it's going to take to get, first, to have a conversation that's more deep and probing, and secondly, to get to the point where they say, I need Carla, or I need somebody like Carla to help me with this.
Right.
So it's the triggers that you need to be able to find.
And that's the other thing I spend so much time in marketing that the business development side of the business, if you are a technician and then you're trying to move up and become a strategist or outside, I wasn't a business development person, so I didn't understand I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. So the other thing I did was Sandler training, because I need help, just like you're spotting. Couldn't make sense of it.
I'd like to, I think, piggyback on Tony. How many people you probably don't need all that many people to sign on the line in order for your business plan to succeed for 2019. And it seems to me that you just said, I have a marketing background, and the way you're looking out into the world is with a marketing headspace. Exactly. It's very reassuring to hear you say that you were exposed to Sandler sales, because I think that if you can put on a sales hat, then this will become a little more clear. in quite a few ways. And what Tony was saying is target somebody, find out where they are, go see them. And during the process of targeting somebody, you need to research and answer the questions. Are they the kind of people that I want to work with? Is their business the kind of business that I want to work with? And if you can establish a sales funnel, to use an archaic term, of 40 specific targets to work. These guys are guys whose name I know, whose company I know, whose company I've researched, whose company I've evaluated as needing my help, so that when I finally get in touch with them, and then develop a strategy for each of those individual targets. If you have 40 targets to sift and winnow for the next 11 months, you're gonna get in front of somebody, right? And the strangest thing I ever heard from that perspective is a guy who finally tracked down the president of Hummer. He wanted to talk to the president of Hummer. And nobody paid any attention to the president of Hummer because they thought it was a GM company. He was the president of Hummer. He found his home on Google Maps, right? And he sent him a big box with stuff to attract his attention, right? And that was the icebreaker, you know, that sort of knocked him out of the box. Well, when you're talking about branding, right, that would be something that demonstrated your value and your brand and your personality, you know, something to get their attention so that the next time the secretary gets the call, he says, oh yeah, I know who you are. But those are sales-oriented processes. Those aren't aggregate marketing processes. And so sifting and winnowing through all 20 million plus companies to find your niche and break that down into 40 people, right? And then go out and get them using techniques like Tony describes, using the highly recommended LinkedIn approaches, right? Where you're kind of there, where you're broadcasting information, but you're not focusing on somebody saying, hey, I saw this, you might be interested in this, and beginning a conversation through that process. I have never done that. So I don't know if it works. I just know there's a gazillion people out there trying to get me to pay them to teach me how to do it, right?
But I'm game.
Right? But so that's the only input I have on it. But to focus on a sales-oriented, focused process like you probably heard about in Sandler's. Yeah, so to get that in there and get that out of your fingers, I think would really make a big difference in this year. And as a part of that process, you'll do this.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, and we can continue that after the fact. We should have some time soon.
Catherine Nickel, Net Marketing Business Development Services. I have 2 points. One, I echo on Tony's as far as getting involved. I coach my business clients on personal brand as well as their business brand. Who you are, where you spend your time, where you volunteer. You'd be surprised who's there. And it's not a typical business-to-business meeting, but you're rolling up your sleeves, you're doing something good for the community. And I suggest to all my clients, get involved someplace and make a difference, not just show up as a seat warmer, but be involved, because that's how you're reaching a lot of these people who are like-minded. Also, just like all small businesses, we only have so many hours, even like you and I had talked before, sometimes business is 7 days a week. It's just the nature of it for what we do. One way to help streamline your reach is through the associations by vertical. Most of those people on the boards of the different associations are still pretty much go-getters. They want to encourage the membership who are further down the ranks, teach, learn, get involved. And these people are running their own businesses as well as being on those boards. I would say, as far as part of your 40 meetings a month, target some of those associations within select verticals. The top people for who's on the board of directors, this stuff is all public knowledge. do a certain percentage of your meetings, including those folks.
Cool.
Either they could become your client or they would know somebody.
Awesome. Awesome.
Deb and then Tony.
So to follow up on a couple of the comments, the gentleman over there talked about focusing in a particular niche area
Right.
and the idea of associations and meeting folks. There's a group called ASAE, American Society of Association Executives, and associations and nonprofits. 20 million is, that's sort of a sweet spot, and they're not huge organizations, and oftentimes they don't have the depth in terms of things like marketing and strategy and communication. And an ASAE, as an example, has, I think, monthly meetings on marketing. And if you become a member of that organization, you get to go to those meetings and then interact with people who, oh wait, you do this, and they oftentimes hire consultants.
Okay.
That's a way of sort of association and nonprofit kind of business, because they don't have the depth to bring people up on board. And the other idea would be also to join a chamber of commerce that has a membership, and there's many of them in this area. It has a membership that is the target that you're seeking.
Okay, awesome.
Just to pass on something quickly with regards to the outreach to the nonprofits. A couple of people here know my background, and I, many years ago, worked for someone who was very big in the charity organizations. And he told me a piece of advice that just came back to me as you were speaking, and that was this. Small businesses and small business owners send their people to volunteer. Mediums volunteer themselves to get equity. Large write checks. Okay?
Yeah.
Since your target is the mediums,
Yeah.
get into that mindset of hands-on.
Okay.
And find out, go through, as everybody has said, find your targets, find 20 or 30 targets, do the research, know about the company. Then find out where they're volunteering, where they're working, then go to those and volunteer. Don't expect to meet someone right on, but foster it, and because when they see you working with them, as you said before, what happens is now it's a trust.
Okay.
They get to know you, they trust you. And then when you finally meet them, and it's like, oh my God, don't get the Chihuahua attitude when you finally see the person you've been trying to meet. But but you're there, but they're right in front of you, and I didn't say that you do that, but what's nice is when they meet you, and you know about their business and understand what they do and what their marketplace is and niche. That's an impressive point for them. They're like, okay, here's someone who knows who I am. All right, maybe a little creepy, but it's nice. She's a cool person. Okay, I'll get to know her better because she took the time to get to know me.
So we've got time for about 2 more questions. So Jose's been waiting patiently.
So Tony just set up my comment question perfectly, thank you. And that is, we've been spending a lot of time talking how you get in the door, or at least knock on the door as they start to open it. But he's touching on a key thing. You have to know their business. Your message can be very different to these C-suite executives and to the solopreneurs you're dealing with.
Right.
And I'm gonna be a little self-serving because I'm a finance guy. But if you can quantify, if you know their business, and you can quantify your offering and how my marketing ideas can generate this much value, be it revenue, be it new prospects, quantifying numbers, that's the language people in that 20 million start to really think about.
Okay.
They start thinking about, how do I grow my business? How do I generate more cash flow? How do I do all these things? And you can't come in as, I'm an expense. I'm a value generator for you.
Okay.
And talk numbers. Besides the marketing and all the sizzle you're gonna sell.
Right.
You've gotta give them the stake with the numbers and how you're gonna change their bottom line or their cash flows, whatever that is.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, Catherine Nickel, Net Marketing Business Development Services. With respect to AE, that's a very good forum for reaching associations. And they do have lunch and learns downtown in DC. Sometimes it's panel, sometimes it's individual, and they have an annual call for papers. I was selected, it's a competitive call for papers, and then you go out to the conference, whether it's Chicago or wherever else, it's your expense. But the visibility, they tape, they record, it's part of their proceedings, it's part of everything else. If you have something, especially if you want to work in the nonprofit space, the association space, that is a very good tool to utilize.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody. Great questions. going to turn it over to John to
Right.
ask the last question.
Yes, I get to ask the last questions, but before I do that, I want to present Carla with our coveted
Thank you.
1 million mug.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so I get to ask you the last question. So as a 1 million cups, as a community,
Yeah.
what else can we do for you?
Write all your ideas down, give your contact information, because I'll be calling.
Great, thank you, thank you. So, yeah, so I forgot to mention, so the cards in front of you, so if you haven't had a chance to ask your questions or comments, please jot them down. We're gonna be collecting it and hand it over to Carla. For some of you who are new, you've seen how it's done. There's a lot of interaction, and so you might be thinking, if you're a business owner, you may be thinking, hey, you know, I got a lot out of this just by listening to some of the comments, and that the collective brand power is really awesome. That's what it's all about. And so a lot of times you're kind of in the trenches and you don't see sort of different perspective. And so if you're wanting to come up or wanting to present in front of this audience, please let one of the organizers know, or if you log onto our 1 Million Cups website, you can apply to present. Next week, we have our own Laura Drain from Random Words Marketing will be presenting. Keep in mind that, and also I'd encourage you to bring visitors and your guests, stuff like that.
What else is special about next week?
Oh yes, so I'm glad you asked. So next week marks our 1 year anniversary. So we're going to be something special. So if you can bring guests and your friends and colleagues, that would also be awesome. So kind of we can fill this room. Did I forget anything? Is there anything else?
I just heard you say that you're cooking us all breakfast here.
Sure, why
next
not?
week for our anniversary. No.
We don't know what special is going to happen, but there'll be something special.
There'll be something special.
Yeah, great. All right. So there's a lot more coffees today, and feel free to network, and I think that's it. All right, great. Thank you.
Great job, John. Thank you.